we have already seen a little bit how to use the graphics pen filter. Here's an email that's going around between our beta testers and pointing to some of the new developments and new changes. You know, we're constantly adding and improving, and in this particular case we have a couple of plugins that are being internalized, which means that the installation will go a little bit faster because they're not separate plugins or separate files anymore. It will be less cluttered in the installation folder. It might install a little bit faster, but most importantly it will also run a little bit faster, in some cases significantly faster. So let's have a look. I thought this would be a good idea to just have a look at some of these. These are very artsy filters in some cases, and some of them are very functional sharpening filters, high pass filters, convolution. And we can just have a look at where they are and what they do, and then we will wrap it up in the end with an image tool called the frame your work, where you can put a little wooden frame around it and make it pretty. Alright, so for starters, let's get a filter that's not listed here, and we'll just use something to render a plasma noise. This is something that we often use if we do space art, but a lot of other uses for that too. Let's go hue saturation value, and then let's go and make this a grayscale. Or you know what, let's just keep it colored. So maybe we'll go back to this. So let's have a safe copy here, store the image, and let's start with that. Alright, so what is it? We were looking at oilify. Alright, let's start with this image and do some oilify. Under the filter menu, there'll be plenty of time to explore others, but let's go to the artistic category here and look for oilify, and there it is. Alright, and so what oilify immediately does, as you can see, it looks like it has fewer colors. It sort of bands it, and you can adjust the level here, and then there is also a Kuwahara method, or a symmetrical nearest mode, and that takes a little bit longer. And you can use that to create something that looks a little bit more oily painted. Now in a case of an image like this, it's a little bit difficult to see and recognize, but if you were to start with a photograph, this would definitely give you a good starting point. The idea is that once you have this, you have something that looks a little bit more blotchy, as if you had tabbed it with some oil brush. And then one thing you could do at that point is perhaps further distort it with some displacement filter. Just a quick look at that. What I would do is perhaps copy that into the swap buffer. Right, copy the swap buffer, and then do a displacement by the swap buffer. So it's displacing it by itself, and that would be down here, displace by swap and displace it. And then so you can do a little bit of a displacement, and the brighter it is or the darker it is, that will control which way it's displacing it. Right, so that's one way that you can give it a little bit more distortion, as if it were hand painted. And then you can also, of course, add a little bit of thickness to it with the convolution embossing, the color emboss, and there you go. So you get something a little bit more oily looking, or you know, thick color added to that. Of course, that's also an effect you get, and then some, with the stylized lighting, and especially if you keep the multiply pretty strong and reduce the brightness a little bit, and you want to add some coloring to that. Anyway, let's go back to the other. Let's store this one. You never know, you might need it for some other work. So let's keep a safe copy of that. This is the one we started from. This is what we ended up with. Alright, let's go to the next one, and Max Sharpen. I love that one. This is actually, that one's been renamed to Art Sharpen, and this is again development underway right now after 8.0 release. So you may not see that in your Dog Waffle 8 yet. This will be probably coming out as 8.A or 8.1, who knows, we'll see that soon. Anyway, when you go to Sharpen, the filter, there's an Art Sharpen. It used to be Max Sharpen, and that one also has sort of a color reduction side effect. As you use it, you can tell that it looks like it's doing a little bit of a color reduction and a staircasing or a banding, and you can set the threshold here pretty low to have that effect there. This is also something that I like to recommend if you want to start from a photograph and make it look a little bit painterly, as if you had like padded that or put some dabs of paint with a brush on it. The other thing that you can use this for also is turn this into a 3D, and because it's been sort of leveled and you know, there's one color and then there's another color, but there's not thousands of colors in between. It's something that looks pretty neat when you go into the 3D designer and look at it from, let's say, shaded mode with the colors from the image, right? And then go in here like so. So there's some pretty neat effects you can get out of that. It looks like my parameters are a little bit off on that position. Anyway, I'll let you explore that. That would be the max sharpen. Let's go and undo that. I'm going to store that one as well. And let's see what else. So we started from this. We got that. We got this. We got a couple of a few more to experiment with here. High pass filter. Let's go again with this one here and start with the high pass filter. So that would be under the convolution or convolve. That's where you do things like embossing and edge detection. And there is a high pass filter here, and that one actually is not really doing a whole lot. Well, it's showing noise and it's emphasizing noise. Okay, so when you see this, well, there's not a whole lot to gain from this one, but it's something that you could use perhaps to increase detail that otherwise is washed away. Let's see what else we have. Convolve kernel and has new presets rewritten and multi-threaded. So also very much faster than it used to be. Let's see the Convolve filter. Why my cat is going berserk in the background. And let's go and Convolve, and where's my Convolve filter? Boom, 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 gradient, Convolve kernel, there it is. Alright, so with this one here you have a couple of presets. Edge detection, not much to detect on that. Sharpening it, yep. Blurring it, embossing. So this is something I would recommend to experiment with. When you see these numbers change here, this may mean something to you if you are the mathematical kind, right? If you like to experiment with these to see what they do, and of course it's going to go in many different ways if you change it, and it may have no effect at all. It really depends on whatever you're touching here, and I have no idea what I'm talking about here. So we're gonna skip this one and just move on to the next one. Let's see what else we got here. The cross contour. Okay, now that one I think is also in the convolution. Am I wrong? Am I right? Where is it? Convolve cross contour. Yeah, it's not in this category. Oh yeah, artistic. There it is. Alright, so cross contour, and that's pretty neat actually. Let's see. Let's start. Well, this actually looks neat, even just on the colors there on the text part. But there's a couple of other ways to look at that. Let's grab this original image here again, and go to artistic and cross contour. Right. So, and so interesting little effects you can get out of that. Looks more interesting when you have some discrete parts, like like the text was, as an example. All right, very fast indeed, multi-threaded and rewritten, and then the graphics pen we've seen already a little bit, but just if in case you missed it, let's see what the graphics pen does. Filter, artistic, come on, stay there. Graphics pen, there, graphic pen. Basically what that does is it gives you a graphic pen look, and you can change the size, the stroke density. You have many different options here for different styles. Let's see, pen size, really thin, hard pen, crosshatch. That's the pen size. Stroke length. Right, so to basically make it look like you used a pen, an ink, pen and sketched it along there. Crosshatch stipple patterns. So there's more and more really interesting alternate ways to render this. The pen size. Let's reduce this a little bit. And then also, let's see, pointillier scribble. I think the scribble is one of my favorites. Yeah, that makes really interesting, long little wormy displays. So, you know, you start from a photograph and play with this a little bit, and I bet you'll find some great alternate ways to display your artwork. Let's say, for instance, this one here. Let's store this one, right? And you can go to the image and store this. And you know, when you compare this one with the original, you know, very different worlds, and sometimes you like to use this maybe in black and white. Let's convert this to black and white, to grayscale, and maybe exposing it to a lens with a particular color. Maybe at that point you'd like to use this black and white as outlines against this image, right? So what you could do is copy this to the swap buffer. And there's a couple of other ways, but this is kind of a step-by-step. Copy the swap buffer, put this one back in, and now click up here to show them both together. Now this doesn't actually merge them, but if you want, you can do so. You right-click on this, and unfortunately it's off the capture area here, but you can see one option here is merge with swap. So it merges this into a single image. If you click this again, it might make it even darker and show it more, but this is good enough. So you now have a single image in which you get these outlines right on it. This is a technique you can use sometimes for cartooning, to make it look a little bit like you know, outline drawings, black lines around the colored background that you have initially. In fact, the combination that works really well is to use one of those art sharpens perhaps initially, and then do this magic with the outlines on top. So the colors are fewer and you still get the outlines there as well. Alright, and let's see what else. Let's store this one here actually. Let's see, where was it? 1, 2, this one here. Let's go and store this. And there you go. And then we probably have just one more to go here, and that is indeed the weave pattern, rewritten and multi-threaded, also very fast now. So what the weave pattern does is essentially put a little bit of a weaving pattern filter, artistic weave. There it is. All right, now this one's pretty small. Let's go bigger. You can see this is going real time now, really fast. So it puts that on top of the existing. It blends it into, or multiplies it, burns it into the existing image. So let's say, for instance, if you started with this and you wanted to add that weave pattern to that, you would go filter, artistic, and weave. There you go. And there you go. Now another technique might be something like this here, where you start with this, or with this one, and you're going to want to distort it or displace it. So I'm going to put this one here, use Shift J to copy it, or use this here, Shift J to copy to swap buffer. Then I start with this, right? And then or with this one. It doesn't matter, let's use this. And then I go with the weave pattern at that point, artistic weave. Something like so. And now I'm doing my displacement. So that would be displaced by swap. And there's a couple of choices to explore there too, but this one here, you can see how that displacement pattern is acting on us here. So it looks a little bit more rugged and dislocated. Finally, we might want to go back to the image and expand the dynamic range to get a little bit more brightness out of there if we didn't have it reach the full brightest level. And so now let's go and finish it with the last item here. I want to store this first, and then talk about adding a nice little wooden frame around it. So whichever technique you use, whichever whether you painted something, or whether you imported a photograph, or whether you added filters to do something funky like this here. If you have at that point an image that you're proud of and you'd like to show, one thing that you could do is show it perhaps on a tablet of some sort, or an iPad, or a laptop that you have a slideshow running, and what you'd like to do possibly is to show it with a nice little wooden frame around it. Now, you don't have the wooden frame on your iPad, right? But you may want to show as if there was a wooden frame. So what you could do is go to the image menu here and frame your work. Put a wooden frame or a metallic frame, or some plastic frame or whatnot. Basically frame your work. And when you frame your work, you get this little interface here, this dialog that shows you an example of some frame around it. I like to experiment with some of these colors a little bit until I find something that looks a little bit different. Let's keep going here. This one might be what I need, yeah. And then you can invert the frame, or you can add some texture like a wood grain. It's kind of difficult to see here until you render it and look at it. You could make the mat a little bit bigger. There's two mats there, the white and the gray. Different colors. You could make them a little bit smaller. Right, you could make them 22, and this one here you could make it 33. And let's see what else. The frame size itself, you might want to make that bigger. Let's give it inverted. There you go. And I think that's basically it. There's a couple of other parameters here, how the wood pattern that we are applying here, wood grain, or the antique, or the sponge, how that texture is applied. You have some parameters for that. The scale of it, the pattern, square or sign off, and that'll look really nice. Let's give it a little bit more intensity. Let's give it 44, 43. And call it a day. So click OK, and what it's going to do is it's going to add the frame around it. So it's going to make the picture actually bigger to accommodate the space around your picture, around your existing image. All right, and copy that, allocate it, zoom out, and there you go. You got the nice, beautiful frame around it. Let's go zoom into that a little bit and see what happened. And there you go. So here's a wooden frame that was added by Dog Waffle. We didn't use the paper texture. We could have had a little bit of a paper rough there, a little paper texture. But that's basically it for today in this little demo, looking at some of the filters, just to get you curious and try them. And then finish it off with a nice little wooden frame, which at that point you could go and print the whole picture on paper, or you could just show it full screen and call it a day.